to contain everything you've learned in the last 4 weeks and months, and then what is your best estimate of how many people around the world could be affected by this virus? Don't know. What's this virus frightening you? Every time I'm involved in the epidemic, it frightens me.
Well, you've heard me say many times that we don't make guarantees in healthcare, and this virus is clearly a huge challenge, and we're learning about it every day.
And that, Presiding Officer, is the key point. The virus has not gone away, and it will not go away of its own accord. It will pose a real and significant threat for some time to come, so we must not ever be complacent in the face of it. We must keep working to drive it down further towards the point of elimination, because that then gives us the best chance of keeping it under control through testing, surveillance, contact tracing, and the application of targeted suppression measures when that is necessary. The prize, if we succeed, is getting greater normality back in our lives, and maybe more quickly than we would have envisaged a few weeks ago, and hopefully without reversals back into blanket lockdown. And nowhere does any of that matter more than in our schools. As John Swinney said yesterday, blended learning is a necessary contingency because we might need it. There are no certainties with this virus. But the progress we have made so far now makes it possible to plan for a full-time return to school in August with appropriate safety measures in place. To achieve this aim, though, we must continue to drive the virus down to the lowest possible levels and keep it there. And I hope that the prospect of getting children back to full-time education sooner rather than later gives us all an added incentive to do exactly that. The same is true of the updated version of the route map that we have published today. That now sets out a series of indicative dates, and I stress indicative dates, for the remainder of Phase 2 and the early part of Phase 3. This greater clarity is possible because of the progress we've made against the virus, but delivering on the milestones depends on that progress continuing. We will complete our formal 3-week reviews as required by law on the 9th and the 30th of July, and I will make statements in Parliament on both of these dates. But I hope today's statement will provide people and businesses across the country with a bit more certainty now in their forward planning. We will also issue detailed guidance ahead of the key dates being indicated today. That guidance will be informed by the advice we commissioned last week from our scientific advisory group on 2 key issues. Firstly, what, if any, further mitigations are required in locations that might pose a higher risk of transmission, and second, what settings, circumstances, and with what mitigations might it be possible to allow a relaxation of the 2 metres physical distancing rule. I will receive that advice next week and report on it by the 2nd of July, and we will issue guidance as soon as possible after that. However, there are 3 general points I want to make today in advance of it. First, unless and until we have confidence that the risk of moving away from it in certain circumstances can be mitigated, businesses and individuals must continue to comply with the 2 metres physical distance rule. However, I do understand the concerns businesses in certain sectors in particular have about this, and so I hope that in the period ahead we can find a viable and a safe balance. Second, we will take a decision on whether to make face coverings mandatory in shops, as we have already done in public transport, in light of the advice we receive next week. But in the meantime, we will join with the retail sector in a campaign to promote and encourage their use. Third, to support our test and protect system, businesses in the hospitality sector will be required to take names and contact details of customers and store these for 4 weeks, so they should be preparing for that now. Let me turn now to the updated route map. As I announced last week, non-essential retail can reopen from Monday, so too can workplaces in the manufacturing sector that have been closed until now. Outdoor playgrounds and outdoor sports courts can also open from Monday. However, I can confirm indicative dates now for the rest of Phase 2 and for the early part of Phase 3. Let me repeat, though, that all of these depend on continued suppression of the virus. I can confirm that on the 3rd of July, it is our intention to lift the guidance advising people in Scotland to travel no more than 5 miles for leisure and recreation purposes. And although the tourism sector will not fully until the 15th of July, we intend that self-contained holiday accommodation, for example, holiday cottages and lodges or caravans where there are no shared services, can open from the 3rd of July. However, we would ask people to use good judgment, abide by the rules that apply at any time to households meeting up, and be sensitive to those living in our rural and island communities. And the advice, of course, remains to avoid crowded places. As we hopefully suppress the virus further, we will also continue to consider any measures that might be necessary to protect against the risk of imported cases of the virus. It is then our intention that outdoor hospitality, such as beer gardens, will be permitted to reopen on Monday, the 6th of July. That gives a few days after we receive advice from the advisory group for guidance to be issued and any necessary mitigations to be put in place. I hope that we will then be able to move to phase 3 of the route map on the 9th of July, but as indicated earlier, I will make a further statement to Parliament on that date. However, as was the case with phase 2, I don't expect that we will do everything in phase 3 at the same time. Instead, we will take a phased approach. The resumption of NHS and other public services, for example, will continue during the 3-week period. However, I will give some indicative dates now for the early part of phase 3, others will be added later. We intend that from the 10th of July, households will be able to meet people from more households outdoors with physical distancing, and I will confirm the details of that in my 2nd of July update. I also hope at that point to confirm an expansion of the extended household model and also some changes that will give young people more opportunities to mix with their friends over the summer holiday period. However, I can confirm now that organised outdoor sports for children and young people can, subject to guidance, resume from the 13th of July. We also expect that non-essential shops within indoor shopping centres will reopen from the 13th of July, subject to guidance on physical distancing and other measures. From 15th July, we intend that a household will be able to meet indoors with people from up to 2 other households, subject to physical distancing and strict hygiene measures. We intend that early learning and childcare services will be able to resume from 15th July, subject to individual provider arrangements. It is likely, though, Presiding Officer, that capacity will remain restricted initially. As we have indicated, the tourism sector generally, and therefore all holiday accommodation, can reopen from the 15th of July. We intend that indoor locations such as museums, galleries, monuments, cinemas and libraries will also be able to reopen from that date, but with precautions in place. For example, tickets being secured in advance and, of course, subject to physical distancing and strict hygiene. Unfortunately, though, theatres, bingo halls, nightclubs, casinos and other live entertainment venues will not reopen until a later date. We intend that pubs and restaurants will open indoors from the 15th of July, but on a limited basis initially and subject to a number of conditions. Detailed guidance will be issued as soon as possible. And last but not least, for many of us, we intend that hairdressers and barbers will reopen from the 15th of July. Other personal retail services will remain closed until a later date. The other changes, Presiding Officer, planned under phase 3 require further consideration and assessment. These include communal worship, indoor live entertainment venues, outdoor live events under certain conditions, indoor gyms, and the lifting of restrictions on attendance at weddings and, unfortunately, funerals. I'm not able to give indicative dates for these today. However, my judgment now is that these changes are unlikely to take effect before the 23rd of July, although we will, of course, keep that under close review. In addition, before the end of July, we will provide further advice to those who are shielding. We want, if we can, to move away from the current position of blanket guidance for all shielding people to much more tailored advice about risk and how to mitigate it. Presiding Officer, our challenge, which is not an easy one, is to manage all of this change while keeping this virus firmly under control. If at any stage there appears to be a risk of its resurgence, our path out of lockdown will be halted and we may even have to go backwards. To avoid that, we must get as close as possible to elimination of the virus now and build confidence in our ability to control it in future through surveillance, testing, contact tracing, and where necessary, targeted suppression measures. If we can do that, then the move from phase 3 to phase 4 will become possible, perhaps as we go into August. That won't be easy, and it certainly at this stage cannot be taken for granted, but we can all play a part in making it happen. Complying with the requirements of Test and Protect is absolutely vital. An information leaflet about Test and Protect is being delivered to every household across Scotland this week. But let me take the opportunity now to remind everyone watching, and indeed everyone in the chamber, what it asks of all of us. If you have symptoms of the virus, you and your household must self-isolate and book a test immediately. The symptoms to watch out for are a new cough, a fever, or a loss of or change in your sense of taste or smell. If you experience any of these symptoms, please do not wait to see if you feel better later that day or the next day. Take action straight away. You should book a test at nhsinform.scot or by phoning NHS 24 on 0800 028 2816. Presiding Officer, I hope this statement has been useful in providing some further clarity on changes that are likely to take effect in the early part of the summer. Both I and my ministerial colleagues will keep Parliament updated over the course of recess. As I said earlier, I'll make further statements in the Chamber on 9th and 30th of July, and I will also provide regular updates in the daily media briefings. I hope very much that by the time Parliament meets again in 2 weeks, we will have made further progress in the fight against this virus and be further down the path out of lockdown. But I cannot stress enough that that depends on all of us. The choices we've made to date as individuals and indeed collectively as a society have brought us this far, albeit with a lot of sorrow and anguish along the way. But arguably the choices we make in the coming weeks will be even more important as we learn to work, socialise and live alongside each other again, but in a way that keeps the virus under control. For us to meet each other indoors again, for more businesses to reopen, for children to return to school on a full-time basis in August, all of that depends on all of us acting for the common good. It depends on everyone sticking to the essential public health rules and having the patience to stick with a careful but steady path out of lockdown. So for the moment, except for those who have chosen to form an extended household, please continue only to meet family and friends out of doors. If we stick with that for a further 2 weeks, I am hopeful that indoor meetings will be possible again soon. And please, at all times, remember our key guidance. Remember the facts. Face covering should be worn in enclosed spaces, public transport, shops and anywhere else where physical distancing is more difficult. Avoid crowded areas. Clean your hands regularly and thoroughly and clean hard surfaces after touching them. 2 metre distancing remains the clear advice. Self-isolate and book a test immediately if you have symptoms of COVID and you cough, a fever or a loss of or change in your sense of taste or smell. It is because so many people have done the right things and have stuck so closely to the rules that we are now making such progress. That is what has brought us to a position where we can now see a route back to living less restricted lives. So please stick with it, be sensible and apply careful judgment. In everything we do, we should be thinking not just of our own health, but that of everyone around us too. And if we all continue to do the right thing by each other and by our communities, I do believe we will get through this more quickly. So please, to everybody, my message is this: stay safe, protect others and save lives.
Thank you very much. The First Minister will now take questions. Any member who wishes to ask a question, the President will press the Request to Speak button.